All right, what's up, everyone? Episode 26 of Bleav in Queens. I'm Joe Serralo. Joining me, as always, Tyler Ward. Catch him at WardyNYM, and the former New York Met himself, Anthony Recker. Also, probably not the best time to admit this, but former Atlanta Brave as well. In case anyone out there thinks he's an undercover agent or anything. Hey, Wardy, I had to make you laugh. Look, this is
good timing. That's good timing for that one. You've never said that on the show before.
This is only the second time I've laughed today. Once was during the.
This is going to be the toughest episode so far. We're 26 deep, and I mean, this is the least fun. I wore black. I was, picking out, do I wear Get Wrecked? Do I wear Bringing Vogel back after that big home run? I wore black because it's a fucking funeral, right? I mean, the chances at the NL East title are officially done. This team is going to be a wild card team. Atlanta's magic number is 1. Not only did they take the lead, they took the tiebreaker. They took our hearts out, right? They took everything from us. There's no way to sugarcoat it. But before we dive into that, there is a way to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by our proud sponsors at BetOnline. Head on over to betonline.ag for the latest lines, odds, news, and developments, and use the promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV for that first time, one time, 100% welcome bonus. Playoff baseball's around the corner. NFL and college football are in full swing. Head over to BetOnline. It's where the games begin. All right, the shameless plug is out of the way, gents. Let's get into the series. Tyler, I know that you just ranted for a half hour or so on YouTube. So, Rec, I want to start with you and get your raw reaction because I don't think anyone's heard from you yet. How are you feeling about this? I know that you're more optimistic than Tyler, than even myself. But, I mean, right now, you got a smirk on your face, man. I mean, what's going through your head?
I think what's going through my head is I'm incredibly surprised that they couldn't pull out one of these games. I mean, my confidence in them basically only hinged on the fact that all they had to do was win one of these 3. That's it. Win one of these games, and you've got it all in front of you. Everything's on the table for you to take the division and take those 4 or 5 days off, which we know this team could have used. It just really surprises me that they weren't able to at least take a single game. And not only that, but were there any of these games that by the 5th or 6th inning felt like the Mets were going to win them?
No, they were out of them pretty early.
They were out pitched, and not just by the bullpen, which, look, if I look at Atlanta's bullpen overall, I like their bullpen better. Closer? No, I like Edmonds better, of course, not even close. But I like their bullpen better. Okay, so, yeah, they had one thing. They hit more home runs. Yep, 100%. Knew they were gonna hit more in this series. It was coming. I thought the starting pitching matchups would work out differently. I thought the Mets would at least outpitch the Braves from that perspective in 2 out of the 3 games, at least. Not one single game did a Mets starter outpitch a Braves starter. And that's shocking. This is the strength of this team. This is what, we said they had to win the division because that was their strength. That was the one thing. DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, boom, we got these guys ready. That's why we need to win the division, because we don't want to get in a wild card and have to use those guys. That's our biggest strength. That's what we need. They got beat, beat. I don't even know how to respond to it. It's really shocking. I'm trying to think about how I would feel if I was in that clubhouse. And I know, I think right now it would suck. It would suck really bad. But I know that you have to get yourself ready again. I mean, you got to be back ready in 4 days now? The wild card starts. So you got to get yourself right. You got to get yourself ready. And it's going to be a tough transition, but I think the one thing I would say is, as a player, look, we want to be in the playoffs. Yes, we want to win the division. 100%. That is a huge goal. If we don't, the World Series is still out there. So is this team capable of putting this behind them? and showing something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm utterly, I don't know, aghast isn't the right word, but that they couldn't come out with one of these three. So to think that they can go into the playoffs and win the games that they need to win to get to the World Series and win the World Series, it's very hard to imagine that. But as a player, I wouldn't be sitting in that clubhouse going, "Oh, we're done. Oh, we got no shot now." I wouldn't be thinking that. And so I have to give this team at least that benefit of the doubt that, look, they're still in the playoffs. They still had and are going to finish off a really, really good season. One of the best in this franchise's history as far as regular seasons go. And when you put it in that context, I can't really, I don't know, I can't really see myself being that negative about it. And when I think about where this organization has been over the last 2 years since Cohen took over and since they've started this new trend upward, this is a really quick ascension and to be where they are right now. And I'm saying that knowing that they still have more to go this season. I'm not saying it like, oh, the season's over. I'm saying there's still more to go this season. So realistically, I guess this is where the positivity comes out of me, that the player in me comes out, and it's, look, we still got the playoffs. Like, that's a whole new season. Yes, this sucks. Yes, this is hard. Yes, it's right at the end of the year. We got to swallow it, and we got to get back out there. I just think that it's possible. And I think it's going to be really telling of this organization, this franchise, these players, this core group of players now that they've kind of put together, to see how they respond. And that might dictate kind of how this team plays in future years too. So I think it just really opens the door for people to step up and show what they're really made of. I know fans are disappointed. I know, Tyler, dude, I saw you like getting teary at the beginning of this episode. Like, you're upset. Like, I get it. And that sucks. Like, that's a terrible feeling. I'm a huge fan of, teams and other sports, and like I get emotional. It's different for me now, and having been a player and stuff, I don't get quite the same emotional attachment, but just because I think I tend to try to see that perspective of when I played. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this. And that's where that positivity comes from. I know what it's like to be in a clubhouse where things don't go right at the wrong time. And it sucks. And you just gotta figure it out. You just gotta pull yourself back up and get back on the horse and see what happens. So again, I think this is an opportunity for this team and this franchise and this organization, these players, to potentially go out and show something over the next 3 days. But then, of course, in the postseason, even if they don't win the World Series, come back, win a series, win 2 series, win 3 series. Who knows? Like, show me something. Never know.
So super quick, Rick, because I do want to get Tyler involved here. I know he's got a lot to say and he's been waiting patiently for a while. But really quickly, can this team still win the World Series?
Yes. Can they? Yes. Do I think this makes it harder? Absolutely. Do I think that, and look, you said it's officially over. It's not officially over. They could still win the division somehow. Magically, it could still happen.
If we sweep the Nationals and the Marlins sweep the Braves.
I know. It's probably not going to happen. But look, I don't know. I never thought this was a World Series winning roster from the beginning of the season. I never thought it was a month ago. And that's not to take anything away from them. It's a very good roster. It's one of the best in baseball. But the way I look at things, I look at just pure talent across the board, top to bottom. And there are a few teams out there with more talent that I think, had a better shot at winning the World Series. And that's not to take anything away from the Mets. I have said that all year. But they have enough talent to win it. They have the right pieces. They would need some breaks. They would need things to go their way. And honestly, they would need to start hitting home runs, realistically, with runners on base, preferably. And is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball. Could they still? Yes. Are they going to? In my opinion, probably not. But I didn't expect that from the beginning. And that's I guess that's why I'm a little bit grounded in my expectations of saying that's okay. I never really got off of that. when they started winning and had a huge 10.5 game lead in the division. I thought they were going to win the division. That I thought for sure. And I'm a little bit surprised that they weren't able to come through in this scenario where realistically all they had to do was win 1 out of 3. And I would have felt very comfortable that they would have been able to take this division. Couldn't do that. And that is surprising to me.
Yeah, it's disappointing as hell. Tyler, you've sat there patiently for a long time to start the show, man. Get it off your chest. Let it rip.
I would first like to start by saying that, normally after something like this, everyone was expecting me to like literally scream my head off for like what I was doing on YouTube on my post game coverage. Farthest thing from it. I mean, a feeling like this, especially as a fan with the build up to this series, to be swept, to not even win one of those games, I just feel gutless right now. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I can't even scream. I can't yell or anything like that because the Braves are a top dog. The Braves proved that they were the better team than the Mets this season. They won 10 out of the 19 games. They deserve to win this division wholeheartedly, to take care of Jake, to take care of Max, to take care of Bassett the way that they did. That in itself was impressive alone. Then you see the Mets not being able to competently hit. And we all know, you just feel it more and more. Not having Starling Marte in this lineup really is becoming a bugaboo for this Mets team. And let me start off also by saying that, as I was saying before we started recording here, heading into the season, if I would have told every Mets fan out there that the Mets would be right around 100 wins on the year, there would not be one New York Mets fan upset with that result wholeheartedly. And it's crazy how, again, the Mets, if they get a series win against the Nationals, will get those 100 wins. Even if they don't, 98 is still unbelievably impressive after what was a lackluster first year under Steve Cohen, where there was still a lot of disarray going on. But for the build-up and for all the magical moments that this team has had this year, transition into a 500 ball club since that Dodgers series. And the bigger gripe isn't even not just stepping up in Atlanta in a playoff-type atmosphere, without Francisco Lindor hitting, without Pete Alonso hitting, your top dogs. McNeil did his job, but you can't be relying on him to be driving the runs constantly. The pitching not stepping up, the guys you paid the big bucks not getting the job done. But more than anything, it was the build up to that point. You had the easiest schedule in baseball in the month of September, and you did nothing with it. 2-6 so far that we've seen against the Nationals, the Marlins, the Cubs. The Mets put themselves in this position. They should have never been in this spot to begin with the division on the line entering the series, and yet they did exactly that. So, I mean, the frustration is high as all hell for us fans right now, and it really does suck because this was such a magical season, and I'm hopefully it will continue that into postseason here as things reset. But for us fans to have this type of sour taste in our mouths, and for the Mets to lose this momentum at the worst time possible, there's just no good feeling about it. So as I look ahead now for not even just the National Series, because we have no clue what's going to happen with that, whether Buck is going to maybe sit some guys, just get guys ready for playoffs for the wild card at game 1, or if he's going to make sure that they go out guns a-blazing to make sure that they win the series. Come postseason, my biggest concern as a fan, I want to know where you guys stand on this, is again the Starling Marte factor. For me, winning the division, the most important thing wasn't just making a statement from a fan perspective, that feeling good, finally having that swagger, finally being able to say to the Braves that the Mets are the top dog in the division. But it's now you have your wild card game on Friday. I'll be in attendance. I was not expecting to attend a playoff game this week, and yet here we are. Starling Marte, as of now, still reported he can't grip a ball, can't grip a bat. If he's not ready for game 1, let alone that series against the Padres as of now, or the Phillies, whoever it's going to be, I mean, that's not encouraging at all. So for me, it comes down to a health perspective. If you don't have Starling Marte to start playoffs, I'm far less encouraged because the Mets proved in a playoff atmosphere, yes, it was on the road, and yes, it was against a great Atlanta Braves team. They deserve all endless credit there. Doesn't change the fact that the Mets did not step up from a pitching and offensive standpoint. And whether they do that at home at Citi Field in the wildcard matchup, that is yet to be seen. But they just made things so much more difficult for them than they need to be from the beginning. Rec, you said it best. I mean, I was freaking out after losing game 1, and Rec in our group chat, he was like, the Mets just need 1 win. It's okay. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong, but they couldn't even do that. They couldn't do the bar minimum. And because of that reason, that's why all of us fans are flustered right now. It just is not a good feeling at all. And I hate to be feeling this way. I hate to be getting emotional when, again, it makes you push aside what was such great season, one of the best seasons in Mets history this year and their 60-year anniversary. And yet that feels like that's now going to be brushed aside because of what the Mets were doing, which was a complete choke job in the final month of the season and in the biggest matchup where they need to step up, and no one for the most part, other than the Jeff McNeils, the Daniel Vogelbacks, the Eduardo Escobars were able to do. It's really disheartening from a fan perspective right now. But what's most important for them going forward now is to make sure that they reset. How are they going to mentally adjust from this? Are they going to be able to take this low and build a new high? Nothing's impossible when it comes to postseason. Doesn't matter if you just crack the wild card or if you're the top seed in all of baseball. We all know that that's a completely new ball game. But for me, from Marte's health standpoint, I'm really concerned on that front. I'm also concerned on the Mets starters to a certain degree, to be quite frank. None of them showed up in the biggest playoff atmosphere down the stretch here. What are they going to be health-wise with Jake and his blister? How's Max going to be feeling? Chris Bassett, like, how are these guys going to be looking? It's a real big question mark now. And it just sucks that we have all these question marks entering playoffs this Friday versus having those 5 days off and starting things, resetting the rotation, everyone being fully healthy for next week in a scenario where you won the division. It's safe to say, I know it's not official yet, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Mets officially choked, losing the NL East title this year. So.
Yeah, they definitely did. They did. The Braves just have to win one game against the Marlins, who, by the way, aren't even going to run out Sandy Alcantara for the season finale. They already mentioned that, just because nothing can ever go the Mets' way in September.
And let's not forget, Joe, that you saw the Marlins like a series ago when they were facing the Mets tweet out
they should have swept us.
Tweet out that we should root for the Marlins in the final series when they play the Braves. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well, that's a moot point at this point.
Yeah.
But, look, there's a lot to unpack from what both of you guys just said. Rec, to your point, the pitching matchups, even if game one didn't go our way, which it obviously didn't, DeGrom versus Fried, that was probably the toughest matchup for us. And, we know Jake has been a little shaky lately. I'm not one of those crazy Met fans. And yes, if you were ripping into him after that Oakland start, you're crazy. That was his worst start in 5 years. Wow. I'm not going to go there. But even against the Cubs, he just didn't have his A-plus stuff. And, we saw even against the Pirates where he did have great stuff, his pitch count was high. Something with Jake, just, his last 3 or 4 starts really wasn't there. It wasn't, the Jake that was 6 innings of perfect ball against Atlanta in that series in early August, right? So losing that game, it didn't really shock me to the degree it shocked other people. Max Fried's a damn good pitcher. It was last night's game as we're recording this. So Saturday night's game, Max against Kyle Wright, who, give Kyle Wright credit, 21-game winner on the season. That is really impressive. I don't see stuff from Kyle Wright that makes me think this guy's a bona fide ace. And I don't see stuff from Kyle Wright that makes me think that his team should have the edge when the pitching matchup is him against Max Scherzer. I don't know what the hell went on with Max last night. I think that these Mets pitchers, I don't want to say it's a toughness problem. And I know Rec, as a former player, you might take exception to questioning these guys' toughness. Maybe it's an ego problem, because I saw Jake and Max think that they could beat the hitters in this Braves lineup. And 1-9, it's the best lineup in baseball. Sorry, Dodger fans. Sorry, Astro fans. 1-9, this Braves lineup is the most dangerous lineup. Maybe not the best, the most dangerous lineup in baseball, because these guys swing hard. And for the most part, they do a really good job at only swinging hard at pitches in the zone. And when they connect, watch out. And Jake thought he could beat them, and he simply could not. Max thought he could beat them. I mean, Dansby Swanson and Matt Olson each went deep 3 times this series. That's 6 home runs. That's more home runs from those 2 guys than Pete and Lindor had hits in this series. Alonso and Lindor combined 5 for 25 this series. Swanson and Olson, 6 home runs between the 2. I mean, Rec, to your point, when is this team going to start hitting the long ball? I mean, I was watching last night's game and tonight's game, and every time Pete was up, and oftentimes there was at least a guy on base. I'm like, come on, Pete, this is your spot. You just need 1 homer this series. This whole series to be the hero. Because that's all the team needed, was 1 win this entire series to be in tremendous shape. So, for the way that this season's ended, Tyler, to your point, you had a great point. Coming into the season, if you said, hey, the Mets are going to have 98 wins going into their final 3-game set, we'd all be like, that's amazing. Sign me up. Even if they're the wild card, 98 wins, sign me up. But it's the way that they went about collapsing. It's the fact that the Mets were a first-place team for, when all things are said and done, it'll be, 153 of the 162 games they spent in first place, and then they end the year in second place. I'm sorry. I don't think this team can win a World Series. And Rec, I think you gave a great answer. Obviously anything can happen. They would need some breaks and things to go their way. But you could argue that this seeding was more crucial for the Mets than any other team in baseball for 3 reasons: Starling Marte, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom. The Mets are a bit fragile. They're one of the older teams in baseball, if not the oldest.
They are
They are the
oldest.
oldest team.
Yeah.
Oldest team in baseball.
Oldest team in baseball, right? And you've got Scherzer, who's one of the oldest aces in baseball. Him and Verlander, probably the 2 oldest aces in the league. You've got deGrom, who's just frankly been fragile as hell the past couple of years. And you've got Starling Marte right now, who's battling his injury, which, I'll just forever hate the Pittsburgh Pirates for numerous reasons. Last year's All-Star break, or the series around then being one of them, and for, fracturing Marte's finger this year. So those are 3 big reasons that the Mets needed to get the 2 seed. If you look at the Braves, if the Braves had the 4 seed, I would still consider them a World Series contender. I would not say that whoever loses the division is no longer a World Series contender. I think, unfortunately, that just applies to the Mets. By the way, the Mets went just 2-4 against San Diego this year. And, I know that there were a couple games in San Diego where we didn't have Alonso and Marte because they both got hit by pitches. And, we wrecked them the first game, lost Alonso, lost Marte. We dropped the next 2, but we came back to Citi Field post All-Star break, and we still lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres. So, even though the Padres have definitely been a disappointing team this year, and what they've done after that huge splash at the trade deadline hasn't amounted to much, I still don't consider it a guarantee that the Mets even get out of that wild card series. And if they do, you're facing the Dodgers, and you might not have Max or Jake game 1, game 2 even. It's like, what the hell are we doing here? I think that this collapse has just really taken the Mets out of World Series contention. And it sucks because it doesn't just come down to this Braves series. It comes down to going 9-7 against 16 straight sub 500 teams. And what do we always talk about the Braves do? The Braves beat up on those bad teams. They don't just beat them. They beat them 16-3.
They pistol whip them. They're just smacking them around.
They do, exactly.
It's not even close.
And so you get Atlanta, who really takes advantage of the weak parts of their schedule. And the Mets, yes, it's great to say, hey, we play up to our competition. We were 9-7 against Atlanta. I think there was one point in the year where we were like 8-4 against Atlanta. Yep. I mean, imagine being 8-4 against them and finishing 9-10. It's just this collapse is. I know that they're making the playoffs this year, but it's right up there with 07 and 08, in my opinion, because they had the division. They didn't need. It didn't even have to come down to this. It really should have been clinched before this. You don't get swept by the Cubs. You don't drop 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, and it's probably already wrapped up coming into this series. So it's really disheartening. And I hate to say it, I don't consider them World Series contenders anymore. I just don't. I have no reason to. Tyler, what's up?
I will say one thing, and while the Padres, from what we've seen this year, can definitely be a concern, Mets, especially against Yu Darvish, not a fun matchup at all from what we've seen in these 2 starts. However, correct me if I'm wrong, Rec. The 2015 Mets, how did they fare against the Chicago Cubs in the regular season?
Not good.
Not good. No. And what happened again when they matched up in playoffs?
Flip the script, baby.
Yeah. So that's the biggest takeaway when it comes to playoffs is, again, truly anything can happen. And I trust the Mets and have confidence that they would be able to get the job done in the wild card. Nothing's a guarantee, however, especially if you don't have Marte. That health aspect is the most concerning for me. I mean, you hit the nail on the head again, Joe, with the fact of the Mets being the oldest team in baseball. Jake, what's he going to look like? Max, what is he going to look like? Is there a scenario too, even though I highly doubt it, where the Mets may really want to have Jake start on Wednesday, the final game of the year, in a scenario where the Braves drop their first 2 against Miami? I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm saying
that's a pretty wild what if Atlanta loses.
I don't expect it to happen. But point is that if that did happen, then that's
baseball, guys. Baseball.
Yeah.
Crazy freaking game.
Because just think about that for a second. If that were to happen, and say the Mets win that game, but so do the Braves in their final game. Braves still win the division, and then Mets don't have Jake to start the wild card series.
Yeah, I think that at this point, the magic number is 1. Braves just have
that might not be a terrible thing, guys. That might not be a terrible thing. Because if you do get through the wild card, Jake goes game 1. Well, and then Max is actually set up for game 2.
So that's actually a perfect segue, because I did want to take it from us commiserating to actually looking ahead now to how do we approach this. Rec, we'll start with you here. Do you go DeGrom and Scherzer, whatever order, 1 and 2, and hope to just punch the Pod's lights out? Or do you take a different approach and maybe save one of those guys for a potential game 3 against San Diego, but go with one of them in game 1 and then Bassett game 2 in hopes that you sweep the Padres, you win 2 in a row against them, and you can run either Max or Jake, whichever one you didn't use game 1, you can run out there for game 1 in Los Angeles. How do you approach this Padres series?
I just said that baseball's crazy. Anything can happen. I don't mess around. I don't think, we'll see if we can do it this way and save our bullets. Because guess what can happen? DeGrom, Scherzer, and Bassett can all get beat in a row in Atlanta. And look, obviously this would be in New York. Obviously this would be against a different team. The San Diego Padre team, they've been showing a little bit of sign of life of late. At least Juan Soto has. Dude's been on fire. They hit bombs. I mean, this whole lineup has 20 home runs practically. I wouldn't take that route. I wouldn't take just play for the DS when you're not even there yet. You got to get there. So yeah, no, for me, it's I'm going my 1-2 punch right out the gate. They better come through. And if they don't, Bassett, step up. That would be there's no other way to do it in the playoffs. You can't mess around like that. Not to me.
That doesn't concern you, the thought of having, Bassett and then potentially a Walker or a Cookie going games 1 and 2 at Los Angeles?
No, because realistically, if they're really worried about Jake going on short rest, because I think that would be, let's see, there'd be 1, 2, probably a day off in between, and then game 1. So whoever starts game 1 of the wild card should be able to go game 2, and game 2 of the wild card should be able to go game 3. It'd be regular rest, at least in my head. Maybe I'm missing something on the schedule, but I Bleav there's a day off in between the wild card and the DS. So no, I'm going 1-2. Go right at him. Bassett can go game 1, and then I got DeGrom and Scherzer back to back for 2 and 3, and that's. Look, it may not be the sexiest game 1 starter, but I still like Bassett. He didn't pitch great tonight, obviously.
Last time.
But yeah, I mean, look, this guy has still pitched a lot of great games for this Mets team this year. He's shown an ability to go 7-8 innings at times. He's shown an ability to dominate great lineups. And so, yeah, not what I wanted to see tonight, or last night as you're listening to this. But of course, that's okay. It's baseball. Shit happens. I'm just going to come out literally, if I'm on this team, like I said, I'm going to come out tomorrow. I'm going to kick some ass and hope that I get myself ready and this team gets ready for the playoffs. I would say that they should certainly give themselves, give their position players, because these guys have been playing every day lately.
Yeah.
Give them some rest during the series. Get every guy at least one day. Maybe the last day of the year, I'd have them all in there. But over these next 2 games, give him a blow. Give him a blow. Don't even worry about that. Diaz got in there tonight, finally. Dude hasn't been pitching at all. I might throw him at least once in this last series, maybe twice, just to get him some work so he's ready to go. Because if it does come time to the wild card and the playoffs and he's got to go 3 days in a row and he hasn't done that in months, that's not good. That is not good.
Yeah,
so
he's
for
got to
me,
go Wednesday no matter what, in my opinion.
100%. So to me, they got to get some guys some work, but they also got to get a couple guys some rest. And I think it's just what you do. That's you get yourself ready for the playoffs now.
Question for you guys. We saw Francisco Alvarez make his MLB debut during this pivotal series for the Mets. And while I definitely wasn't discouraged at all with Alvarez, even though he didn't get a hit, had some solid at-bats, had some bad at-bats too. He's a guy that, again, if the Mets get any production out of, then that's a plus for him. But more than anything, the bigger issue here is that the Mets, you can tell, were desperate. Once again, trying to get a righty bat in that DH spot against lefties, and they haven't gotten that consistent production there. So as you enter this national series now, facing that opponent, wanting guys to get rest, do you think it's a good idea to give Alvarez a strong leash, say starting at minimum 2 of the 3 games here at DH in this series? Vientos maybe gain time at DH too. How do you think the Mets should go about that? Yes, Vogelback's been off the bench, but we saw what he was able to do today up until he was pulled for Alvarez in the lefty matchup against Lee. So starting off with you, Rec, how do you think the Mets should go about Alvarez, Vientos, just the young kids with the final series down?
Well, I just said that I think they need to get a couple guys some rest.
Yep.
So that opens the door right there for Alvarez and Vientos to be in this lineup at least 2 out of 3 games. Why not? Why not get Ruff in there too? See if all of a sudden he gets hot. See if he shows some life. I don't know.
If he's back, he's on the IL though.
He's still IL, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot they put him on the IL.
The
Phantom for Alvarez. Yeah, I forgot about that. See, it's Phantom.
Yeah.
You know,
it was totally Phantom. Him and Scherzer both.
Yeah, I forgot. You're right. But no, like I literally, I see what I have. I see what I can get out of guys. See if I can get a couple guys hot. Maybe give Naquin a few ABs. You know, like I just want to see what I can get going coming into the playoffs. It's all about getting ready and whatever you need to do to get ready. Who's your starting catcher? Like to me, it's Nito. He's been hitting the ball way better. Defensively, I think he's actually a better catcher anyway right now. So I'm going Tomas Nito all the way. I'm not even thinking about that. So I give him probably 2 of these 3 games behind the plate, maybe even 1 in the DH if they want to do that. I don't know. Just keep that back going. You know, I think you got to get Vogie in there a little bit. You just want to make sure that all your everyday position guys that have been in there all year, McNeil, Alonso, Lindor, Canna, Nimmo, of course, like those guys don't have to play 2 out of these 3 games. They could play 1 out of the 3 and be fine. They'll be good to go. So I think there's a really good opportunity to get some other guys some ABs and get them ready for the playoffs and make sure you have like at least see what you have, like you said, in Alvarez and Vientos, and maybe one of them shows some life. I mean, you certainly saw Alvarez swing really hard in this series, trying to do way too much, which, look, 20-year-old kid, I get it. You expect that. But I've also seen kids at 20 come up and not do that and be ready for it. And so they know that is going to be an issue come playoff time. You can't just throw this kid in the playoffs and think, oh, he's still fine. He'll hit home runs. He won't, because he needs to calm down. He needs to get that under control. It ain't going to happen like that. The adrenaline was going, and it got the best of him. And that's okay. It happens to all of us. It happened to me. It happens to literally every player that's ever played this game. But it happened consistently, and he never made an adjustment. He never took some breathing lessons and learned how to calm himself down and lower the heart rate. Literally, like on deck, close your eyes, visualize, breathe, deep breaths, slow the heart rate down. When you get in that box, in between every pitch, slow it down, slow it down. He didn't do it, and he's going to have to learn that if they're going to even give him any shot in the playoffs. And so that's the kind of stuff I want to see over the next 3 days.
I'm glad that you brought that up regarding Alvarez, Rec, because I actually had a big issue with him pinch hitting for Vogelback tonight. Look, I know that, the numbers and the analytics say Vogelback only hits against righties.
I agree with you,
got
by the
a
way.
veteran. You wanted Vogie to stay in the game there?
Yeah, lefty and lefty.
Yeah.
That spot, yep.
I mean, you got a veteran who, first off, you got a lefty coming out of the pen, first batter he faces. Who knows if Vogie can't work a walk? He's got one of the best eyes in the game.
Or even just 2-0 and get a heater.
Yeah, and do something with it. I mean, it's not like the guy's incapable of hitting lefties. He's said in interviews since he joined the Mets that, he was asked if he sees the ball any differently. And he's said, actually, no, I see the ball fine coming from lefties. It was just always once I got to the big leagues, an analytics thing where it was like, oh, well, let's just run this guy out there against righties. At least Vogie's a vet. At least he's got a pretty good eye. I would rather live and die with the guy who's 2 for 2 and he's already put one out tonight than the kid who's still looking for his first MLB hit. And look, I'm really high on Alvarez, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future. He's 20 years old. Slow your roll. The kid swung at everything this weekend. And I'm glad that you mentioned that other 20-year-olds come up and don't do that, because every time the Braves call a damn 20-year-old up, he's an instant all-star. I mean, Michael Harris going out there to win Rookie of the Year. Vaughn Grisham.
Let me interrupt real quick. And this is the thing that look, it's a different organization than when I got to the Mets. When I got there, their minor league system was I don't want to be like just brutal, but they were in disarray. It was not good. Yeah. I didn't they had some great pitchers that came up, but I also know the minor league pitching coordinator that they hired from Oakland, Ron Romanek, who brought up a ton of talent in Oakland, was the one there in New York bringing these guys up and having them ready from day one to pitch out, to show out in the big leagues. They didn't have anybody like that on the offensive side. They didn't have any prospects coming up and doing anything on the offensive side. They weren't ready to come up and perform at this level. When I was with Oakland, and I don't want to throw shade on the Mets again, but we worked on things in the minor leagues. Like, we literally had visualization sessions during BP where we had to sit on the bench, try to slow our heart rate, learn how to visualize, learn how to, do the mental side of the game, so that by the time, like, we did so many little things. We had classroom sessions in the minor leagues. Like, literally, we would get in the classroom, there'd be a chalkboard, like, we'd be talking about things, statistics, writing stuff down, everything. All this stuff happened there. I never saw that stuff with the Mets. Now, look, I wasn't in the lower levels with the Mets, so it's different. But that's what I mean by some of these organizations know how to have guys come up and be ready. And I don't know how much has changed in the Mets organization. Maybe they're working toward that. But I think it's still clear that it's not there yet, because you haven't seen guys come up out of the minor leagues and really show out the way that you want to see it, the way that you want to see some of your top prospects do. They still have a shot to do it. They still have a shot to change that. They are making changes in that minor league system. They're drafting great. They're doing a great job with that. They get tremendous talent. These guys perform at an insanely high level in the minor leagues. It has to start translating, or else there's going to have to be some changes made there, because that is something that you can train these kids to do. Be ready to come up. The Cardinals do it. Every single kid that comes up to the Cardinals is ready to perform. Same with the Braves. Same with the Dodgers. These teams that are really, really good, they are bringing talent up as well as bringing players in from the outside. That's how it's done, and that's something that we still haven't seen this Mets team or organization do yet. They're on the way, just not yet.
Yeah, you can tell there's preparation there. When the Mets called up Beatty, he showed great pop at times, and he showed at-bats where he looked overmatched. When they brought up Vientos, he's gone oppo, he's knocked in a few runs. He's also taken some really ugly hacks. Alvarez, nothing but ugly hacks this weekend. I mean, I think he put a good swing on. The first at-bat he had was like a rocket to Riley that he made a good play on. And then I think he hit another one to center field that off the bat I was thinking.
Yeah, that was like his best at bat, I'd probably say.
But I mean, God, if you're pitching to Alvarez and you're a lefty, because he was brought in to face mainly lefties this weekend, I'm throwing sliders that are like shin high that are never even start in the zone. Maybe start low and away and then just come way low and in. And like, it was just so evident how to pitch to him. Vientos, same thing. Meanwhile, the Braves, Michael Harris comes into the league. He's ready. Vaughn Grisham. I'll never forget, there was a play, I think it was in Atlanta in the series the Braves took 3 out of 4, where Grisham went first to home on a ball that was like a slow hit grounder up the middle. And the Mets just kind of played it off like, all right, he's going to go first to third. But he was prepared mentally. I mean, outside of being fast as hell, he was mentally prepared. And he saw, oh, they're kind of taking this play off a little bit. Well, I'm going to turn the damn burners on. And he went first to home on that play. And it's just, these kids come up for, the Braves, like you mentioned, the Dodgers, the Cardinals. They're impact makers. They're instantly impact makers. And the Mets have this talent now, which we didn't always have on the offensive side of things in our farm system. Now we've got it, but they come up and they're lost in space. And I'm not blaming them for it. I mean, I just think bringing up Alvarez, I thought the timing was weird. Maybe they thought it would be a little jolt to the lineup. But at the end of the day,
they were looking for lightning in the bottle. They were looking for lightning in a bottle.
Exactly.
And I think Alvarez, on some level, felt that pressure. That's why it's weird timing. It's not necessarily like, you get it from the Mets' perspective. Okay, we were trying not to call him up, but look, we kind of have to now. But to call him up and then knowing that pressure is going to be on him and he's going to feel that's tough. That's really tough to live up to. And I don't blame him at all for coming up and swinging out his ass, because that is going to happen. But it just, you wish that he was better prepared, and you wish that it wasn't necessarily in that situation, because it's a tough way to come up and swallow that kind of that defeat, that inability to get the job done.
And now the poor guy's 0 for 6, 0 for 7, and he's all in his head. He went through his first series in the bigs, couldn't get a hit. Now mentally, who the hell knows what he's going through? Tyler, let's toss it to you here.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, like, from right away, the Mets calling up Alvarez was a shock to everyone, because it's a desperation tactic by this team. And that's their biggest issue here. They put themselves in a spot multiple times, not only with Alvarez, but with Vientos and to a lesser degree Beatty because of injuries. But all these guys, for the most part, were not expected to be with the Mets this year, regardless on what they did throughout the minors. That's why if we were focusing on bringing up Vientos when he was ready based on performance alone, he raked all year long after first slow month of the year. I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, we were in July and crying, and a lot of Mets fans, including myself, saying give the kid a shot because you were getting nothing still from JD and Dom. Like the Mets haven't had consistent production from DH since the start of the regular season, and they
Maybe
had
we
that.
shouldn't bring up JD right now because he's been raking. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna say one thing about JD Davis, and it
Jesus,
might bother some fans.
As if
but
we weren't heartbroken enough tonight, man.
Anyone that thinks that JD Davis would be performing remotely to the same level that he is in San Francisco right now has no clue what they're talking about.
I agree. Would be better than Darren Ruff. Would be
I
better than
100%
Darren
agree.
Ruff.
And again, and here's the thing: Ruff made sense at the time. That's the frustrating thing. Don't give me that gripe. No, he still
never
made
liked
sense.
that trade.
No,
I never liked that trade.
I can understand
You
if you
didn't.
didn't like.
You didn't. I
It's
did,
just-
but you didn't.
it was-
Well, I
it
didn't
was-
like it. I didn't like it, but
I can
I don't
understand
want to
if you
offend
didn't.
anyone by saying this, but that
What?
trade was like it was like shopping on food stamps. Like I mean, it was just like
I get what you're saying.
go
Yeah.
get the damn steak dinner, man. It's New York. Go get the
isn't
steak.
that what they said in the first
And
their
there
first press conference? I think that's almost exactly what Sandy said. Was now we're shopping
Yeah.
in like the
Yeah.
Bargain
shopping for the
shopping.
grade A meat, the prime
Yeah.
prime section, the prime meat.
Yeah.
They didn't. Well, I mean, there's different trading prospects, but go ahead.
One thing I wanted, there was one player out there that would have checked off so many boxes for the New York Mets, was available, was traded, and would be the Francisco Alvarez of the Mets right now. And the only reason why the Mets didn't acquire him is quite honestly because he was a catcher. They're still locked down with McCann, and that's Christian Vasquez. He was a cheap rental bat that would have gave you more production than what Darren Ruff is giving you right now, righty and lefty, and also in the catching spot. Might not be a whiz, but can't be much worse than what James McCann has been defensively the past month. I mean, the hitting's been there, but James' defense has been up and down all year long. It started off great, then it really picked up. I know you're shaking your head, no, Rec, but if you actually...
No. I'm saying he hasn't been good. I agree.
Yeah, no, like in the first month and a half,
Tyler just came for you.
Statistically, James was looking really good with his framing. Like all the numbers were in his favor. That quickly dipped, however, especially when he dealt with his injuries. So point I'm trying to make is that Vasquez is just one example. And there were other, lesser name bats out there that, again, might have not been pretty, but you could still argue would be better than obviously looking back on what the Mets did with a Ruff. Vogelback, I still love. I never thought that the Vogelback move was a bad move for the Mets. I know he had a bad month. He's starting to pick it up again. He had a hot month, a cold month, and now he's starting to pick it up again, hopefully at the best time for the New York Mets as they're about to enter postseason. But point is that the Mets put themselves in this position and they have themselves to blame. And if they do not go far enough as they should this year, directly in part with being reliant on these kids come playoff time and not getting enough DH production, or depending on how the bullpen performs, then you're going to know why. It all comes down to that deadline. As annoying and as frustrating as it is to say, there's a great reason why us fans can be concerned about that as we get into the postseason.
Yeah, it comes down to a lot of things. The deadline's obviously a huge one. Not beating up, not taking care of business against those sub 500 teams. Another really big one. Guys, that about does it for everything I have to say. This obviously wasn't one of our more happy episodes of Bleav in Queens. Do you guys have anything to add before we wrap it up? No, crickets. All right. Well, in that case, next episode.
We said it, guys. We said it all.
Yeah, next episode, playoff preview. Mets Padres next Friday at Citi Field. Not official yet, but we'll see you there. That does it. Episode 26, Bleav in Queens.